But as I mentioned, I am going to record this. So I just started the recording. So let's go ahead and jump in. So hopefully, my name is Kathleen. I live in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado in the United States with my dog Mika here, as well as my husband. Just a little bit about me. I am an outdoor enthusiast and maybe you've heard me talk about skiing. That's my biggest passion. Then, but now I'm hopefully trying to become more comfortable at mountain biking. So that's my newest adventure this year. So that's just a little bit about me. All right, so I would like to know more about you. So in the chat, please let me know. First, are you currently using English in your job or in your work? Second, if yes, what is the biggest challenge you have when using English? And then finally, why do you want to improve your business English? Obviously, for the third one, I am making an assumption. So if you don't want to improve your business English, then you don't have to answer that question. But I just assume that if you are here, right, you probably want to improve your business English. So yeah, take a couple minutes in the chat below to let me know these three questions. So Yuta says that he is currently using English in his job, which is great. What about anyone else? Anyone else? Good. So Ken Azuma-san shared, yes, I am using English when I'm speaking with US or other offices peers. Great. Ken, I would love to know, where are your primary, where are your other colleagues? Where do they live? Where are they from, right? What is their primary background? Tobias said to me he is German. His main business is in English in Seoul. Yuta says no particular challenges, I hope. Good. Koichiro-san says, yes, I am using English for my job. Good. Ken says he's working with people from Bulgaria, India, the UK. Great. Thank you for sharing. Akiko-san says, yes, I feel like it is difficult to speak fluently. Yeah, it can be definitely a challenge. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Koichiro says, pronunciation, intonation, and fluency are my challenge. Yeah, those things can definitely be challenging. Yes, because I do a Q&A session with foreigners. So you have to answer questions on the spot. That is challenging even for native English speakers, definitely. All right, so I will check the rest of the comments in a little bit, but I'm going to keep moving on. So a little bit about Go Global English, about my company. So before I had even graduated university, I fell in love with teaching English as a second language. And I did that by through volunteering. I started out as a volunteer while I was getting my undergraduate degree. And I still remember the first day walking into the classroom and meeting people who had PhDs and master's degrees from their home countries. And they were incredibly motivated and inspired, but I did not have the skills or education to be able to help them. But I knew that these were the kinds of people that I wanted to help. I had found my passion. I loved learning from other people about their culture, about their background. And so that is how I ended up eventually getting my master's degree in teaching English as a second or foreign language from Colorado State University. And since that time, I've taught both at universities, both in China as well as Japan, and have taught many different foreigners in the United States as well. And so when I came back from Japan, I was working at a small nonprofit, and I was only working part-time. So I was feeling incredibly frustrated because I had all of these skills and experiences that I wanted to share with others, but I felt like I was not giving myself in the most effective way possible. So that is why I started Go Global English. And its purpose is to help ambitious business professionals to improve their business English communication so that they can feel more confident and advance their careers. So that is a little bit about me and my business. And now you must be dying to get started with this masterclass. And I don't blame you. So today's questions are, number one, what is the most important part of giving an English presentation? Number two, why you aren't persuading your native English speaking colleagues. And number three, what the most overlooked way is to improve your English listening skills. So these are the three questions that we are going to talk about and look into today. So I would like to start off by asking you a question, and that is, what do you think is the most important part of giving a presentation in English? So in the chat, I would love to hear, what do you think is the most important part of giving a presentation in English? Okay, Koichiro says content. Good. So I'm going to look at some of the previous answers as well. So the biggest challenge is to bring the right timing, sound, and expression to the point. Good. Tobias also says content too, for what the most important part of giving an English presentation is. Good. Making the logic clear, says Takahashi. Making the presentation be concise, understanding who I am presenting to. Yeah, these are all really important parts. I completely agree with all of you. So my next question, and I know this is changing a little bit, right? Presentations to culture, doing a pretty big change, right? But do you think that culture affects how we conduct business? And I have a feeling I know what most of you are going to say, and that is absolutely, right? Culture affects everything that we do. Culture affects who we are, whether we like it or not, right? Whether we are aware of it or not, right? It affects everything we do. And so how specifically is culture affected, or how business is affected by culture? And there are actually eight different ways that we can put these differences on a scale. The first is communicating. We have evaluating as well as leading, deciding, scheduling, persuading, and I can't see it at the bottom because my video is in the way right now, trusting and disagreeing. So business can be affected in these 8 ways from culture. So evaluating, persuading, scheduling, leading, disagreeing, and trusting. Right, it's important to understand how these cultural aspects can affect business. So knowing that communicating, evaluating, deciding, persuading, disagreeing, scheduling, trusting, leading, knowing that these are affecting business. In your opinion, what aspects of culture affect presentations? Out of those 8 characteristics or those 8 traits, oops, gave one away. Out of these 8, what do you think is most affected by what most affects presentations? Yeah, Tobias says communicating. Absolutely. Yeah. Communicating, good. Leonia says communicating. To me, trusting. That's a great one. Absolutely. Leading. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Good. These are all super important and definitely affect our presentations. So the most obvious maybe is communicating. And depending on the purpose of your presentations, one of the things can also be persuading. But we're going to wait to talk about persuading. We're going to talk about communicating first. So if you have never read the book, The Culture Map, and you work in a global business environment, I highly recommend you read this book. This is where the next image I'm going to show you comes from. The Culture Map by Aaron Myers. I just put it in the comments. So that is where this chart is going to come from here. So as you can see, right, there are 2 primary styles of communicating. Maybe you're already familiar with this. We have low context and high context styles of communicating. In short, in brief, right, low context means that communication is valued by precision, simplicity, and clarity. Whereas high context communication, good communication is seen as sophisticated or nuanced, which means that messages are both spoken as well as read between the lines, which means you don't say everything that you mean. Whereas in low context cultures, you say exactly what you mean. So those are the 2 main differences here. I want you to take note, especially if you work primarily with native English speakers, right? If you work with native English speakers, where are they on this scale? Where do you see them? They're all together. They're all right on the low context end, right? The United States, Australia, Canada, the UK. Although the UK is more in the middle, right? It's still more on the lower context end. Whereas if you are from Japan, right? Or Korea or Indonesia, you are going to be on the high context end of things. And these differences is not to say one is better than the other. Absolutely not, right? But it's good to understand, right? How do people communicate? What do they value? So as I already briefly mentioned, in high context cultures, the more educated you are, the greater your ability to both speak and listen with an understanding of implicit layered messages. Whereas in low context cultures, right, the United States, Australia, Canada, the most educated people are seen as though who can communicate in a clear and explicit way. So what does that mean for you? If you are from a high context culture, that means that if you are presenting to native English speakers, you need to use a more low context communication style. That does not mean you have to try to be exactly like a Native American or a Native Canadian speaker. That is not the expectation. Rather, right, you are saying exactly what you mean. All right, if you have any questions, I'm gonna save those to the very end. So if you have any questions, be sure to write them down because I'm gonna save them to the end. So an important part of giving a presentation not only is the content, not only is preparing, but it's also understanding, like you just said, who you are presenting to, right? You have to understand how you need to talk to them. What do you need to say to make sure your message is getting across? So understanding the cultural differences between you and the person you're presenting to is also incredibly important. I don't know if it's the most important thing, but it's definitely one of the first things that you should do when considering creating your presentation. All right. So that is our first question. Now let's take a look at our second one. And I like to start off, as you know, by asking you a question. And I would love to know what is the most challenging, thing about persuading your native English speaking colleagues. So I know not everyone here might have native English speaking colleagues, but what do you find is the most challenging thing if you do? And while you are typing your answers, I'm just going to take a quick drink of water. So in your opinion, what do you think, excuse me, is the most challenging thing about persuading your native English speaking colleagues? If you're feeling a little shy, if you're busy, I totally understand. All right, Leo Neo says, with a very clear logic, okay? Giving a clear concept in a simple, easy to understand way, good. I think that's from Yoshihisa. Great, yeah. Those can be absolutely very challenging things. Minji says, sometimes they understand or twist the purpose in a different way and express very directly, which makes the speaker feel a bit aggressive. Okay. Tobias says, all to understand what they are telling me. Because they are thinking English, the expression from them is understanding everyone. All right, good. Yeah, so sometimes they might think what they're saying is clear, but it's not. All right, good. All right, let's take a look at this a little bit further. So we're going to continue, right, talking about what we had talked about the last time. But before I say that, it is challenging to persuade your native English speaking colleagues because they use applications first reasoning. So if you're unsure what this is, that's okay. I'm about to explain. So what is applications first reasoning? So remember before how I mentioned that persuading could also be a key characteristic when it comes to giving presentations. So that is where this applications first reasoning comes from. It is a way to persuade people. It is how people internalize information. You are persuading people based on how they best receive information. So if we look, typically applications first, once again, is native English speakers, right? We see the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK, right? They're all applications first reasoning. So what does that mean? What is applications first reasoning? Basically, what it is when conclusions are reached based on a pattern of observations from the real world. And I will give an example about what this means in just a moment, I promise, because I know this can be confusing. Whereas principles first reasoning are conclusions from general principles or concepts. So let's take a look at this snowflake here. So if I was someone from a culture of principles first reasoning, let's imagine that it is winter time. It is December in the Northern Hemisphere, right? A principles first reasoning person would think to themselves, okay, it's December, it's the winter time. Because it is the winter time, it could snow today. Right? That is coming from principles, a general principle, right? The general principle is that during the winter, it snows. So that is principles first reasoning. Whereas applications first reasoning, it's still the winter time, it's still December, but instead of thinking, oh, it's the winter, it could snow today, they look outside, they look at the weather, they look at the clouds, and they think, wow, those clouds, they look like snow clouds that I have seen before. I think it could snow today, right? These are based on observations from the real world. So what does that mean for you? What does that mean for you to be able to persuade native English speaking colleagues? What does that mean for you when you're giving a presentation? in English. How can you use this? The way that you can use this is how you structure your thoughts and how you present your ideas. So if we look here under this application's first explanation, it says, individuals are trained to begin with a fact, statement, or opinion, and later add concepts to back up or explain the conclusion as necessary. So what that means, like for example, today, I started off by giving you the 3 questions that we were going to talk about. And now we're talking about those 3 questions. So that is exactly what that means, right? I'm giving you an example right now. And so it's the same thing that you can use in your presentations. So start off with like a general summary of what you will talk about, go into the main details, and then finally summarize. A popular saying, at least in the United States, when it comes to giving information or persuading people is, first, tell them what you are going to tell them, right? That's the beginning. Number 2, tell them what you want to tell them, right? That's the middle. And then number 3, summarize what you told them, right? So you're repeating in a different way the main things that you talked about. So that is how you can be more persuasive to your native English speaking colleagues, especially during presentations, right? Like continuing on, the preference is to begin a message or report with an executive summary or bullet points. So this goes into everything, emails, right? Presentations, discussions are approached in a practical, concrete manner. So it affects every way that we communicate. The last thing I want to add, because both of my answers that we've talked about so far today have been related to culture, it's super important to consider. Truly, the key is to consider cultural relativity. And what that means is where a country falls on the scale, right? It's over here or over here, matters less than where 2 countries fall relative to one another, right? So as we talked about before, high context versus low context communication style. So as you saw, the United States and Japan, the United States is the lowest context culture, and Japan is the highest context culture. So the relativity between those 2 is large, whereas between Australia and the United States is very small, right? So that matters more, especially when you're interacting with other people from other cultures. All right, so I wanted to share about one of my clients, Jessica, who actually is a Brazilian based in Germany. She recently moved there for her husband's job promotion. And so this was something that we talked about, right? How she should structure her speech in order to be persuasive because of those cultural differences. So she learned to give an overview, right? And then give details and then give that summary. And she actually just landed a new job. We were working together for 5 sessions. And she also just changed her career path as well. And I just received this email from her on Monday that she got a new position. And as you can see, she still hasn't changed her LinkedIn profile yet. That's how recent this was. So, you know, together through working together, not only through improving business English in general, that communication, the vocabulary, the fluency, also focusing on the culture and how that can affect how your message is received. Okay, all right. It seems as though we have come to the last question already. I cannot believe it. So my last question to you is, how do you try to improve your listening skills in English? How do you try to improve your listening skills in English? Because if you remember, right, my third question from today is what the most overlooked way is to improve your English listening skills. So what do you do to try to improve your listening skills in English? And as you are typing, I am going to take a drink of water. So to all those who are still here, all right. Shinichi, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, says through watching Netflix. Minji says, I do benchmarking good expressions from native speakers. Good, good. Practicing that way. Watching TV shows, especially that has many conversations like Friends or Suits and so on. Akiko says, watching English movies on Netflix. I think this is Yoshihisa says, try not to anticipate too much what the speaker will say. Oh, I love that. That's just like a general listening skill, not even just for one in English. That's really great. That's really great that you try to do that. Okay. Thank you all for sharing. That is great. Watch series or movies from the country, listen to English radio, try to listen to many different types of speakers, speaking at different conferences, such as TED Talks. Good. These are all really great. These are all really great. So, in my opinion, the most overlooked way to improve your listening is to focus on pronunciation. And that might be an unpopular opinion, but I said it's overlooked, right? It's an overlooked way. And I'm going to talk about why that is in a second, but I would like to ask you quickly, how do you or how would you focus on practicing pronunciation? So do you practice pronunciation? How do you practice pronunciation? So you told me about listening. You told me you watch Netflix, you watch TED Talks, you try to mimic native speakers' expressions. So how do you practice pronunciation? Using an app called Elsa. I've never heard that. I'm going to write that down. Thanks for sharing, Kochiro. Minji says, record and listen my speaking and compare with what I hear from native speakers. That is a great practice. Mimic my colleagues' pronunciation. Good. Nice job, Ken. That's great. Those are all great ways to practice pronunciation. So why? Why would you want to focus on pronunciation? So pronunciation is not just focusing on specific sounds, right? We know that English has many vowel sounds, but it's not just focusing on all these different sounds, although that can help your listening. But if you don't know how English sounds when it is actually being used, then you will always struggle with listening, especially if you work with native English speakers, because they often might not realize that what they're doing, how they're pronouncing something, is challenging for someone who is a learner of English. So that is why focusing on pronunciation can improve your listening. So these are some things you probably already know about what are some specific things that you can focus on for your English pronunciation so that you can improve your listening. So the first is stress, right? It's where we emphasize or we put emphasis on certain syllables in a word. So I'm going to say this word here. I'm going to say it in two different ways. I want you to type either 1 or 2 in the chat. So I'm going to say the word in two different ways. I want you to tell me, what is the correct pronunciation? Number 1 or number 2? Okay, what is the correct pronunciation? Number 1 or number 2? So number 1 is comfortable, comfortable. Number 2 is comfortable, comfortable. Everyone said 2 before I even said it, I think, because number 1 sounded so bad. And I'm also trying to think about it. It's so hard because it's so awkward. But yes, you're right. The stress is on comfortable, right? We want to focus on stress because sometimes it can change the meaning of a word, or it can even make the pronunciation hard for the listener to understand. So intonation, right? The rise and fall of our voice as we speak. So when we ask a question, for example, our intonation rises, our voice carries at the end. When should we circle back on this topic? Right? We're going up. Or like if you're surprised, really? Really? Our intonation. So it's how our voice goes up and down. Connected speech. So connected speech can be one of two things. It can be when two sounds combine, or when a sound gets removed. Like, for example, you could have this sentence, right? Could you give me that? Could you give me that? A native English speaker, if they weren't thinking about, their enunciation, speaking every word clearly, they would most likely say, could you give me that? Could you give me that? We went from, could you give me that, to, could you give me that? These two do not sound the same. Barely at all do they sound similar, right? So learning about connected speech is a really big way to improve your listening skills because of how native English speakers talk. Then we have linking, which can join certain words together, like in and out becomes in and out, in and out. So when you focus on these aspects of your English pronunciation, you'll be able to understand more clearly when native English speakers talk, what they intend. So I want to give you one more thing. I know that some of you told me at the beginning that you work with other non-native English speakers. So maybe, for example, you live in Taiwan, but your colleague is from India, and you're having a difficult time listening to them speak English. because listening to a native English speaker is significantly different than listening to a non-native English speaker from a specific country, right? So if you want to focus on listening to a specific nationality of English speaker, like for example, someone from Vietnam, then you can message me after class for a very specific resource that you can use. They have nationalities from all over. So these are people speaking English who are from native English speaking countries, but also are not from native English speaking countries. People from India, people from France, people from Korea, Japan, all over the world. So if you are working with someone from a specific nationality that is also speaking English as their second language, this would be a great resource for you. And I'm going to share my email address at the end. All right, and I just want you to meet one more person. This was Hirotaka-san. He was also one of my clients. He was actually my first client. And so we worked on his business English communication, much the same as Jessica, right? To tell stories, to persuade other people across cultures. And we never focused on grammar. We did not focus on general English skills. We focused on specific business English communication skills, like those pronunciation things, connected speech, linking. And even though we focused on these specific business English skills, he was still able to improve his TOEIC score after working together, which was really great. And the last thing I would like to talk with you today about is I do have a business English communication accelerator program. So it is 10 classes. It's an intensive program. It is one-on-one coaching. Typically, I meet with clients once a week, maybe twice a week, or once every other week. You get a shared Google folder with all of the PowerPoint presentations from each class. So you get to keep those for a lifetime. And together we focus on developing your confidence and fluency in a business English setting. We focus on creating and giving persuading presentations in English across cultures. So yes, today we just talked about the cultural aspect, but we get really into how do you structure your presentations so that you can be persuasive across cultures, so that you can be communicating in a clear way, right? And then finally, we talk about how you can improve your pronunciation, not just for speaking, but also for listening comprehension. So that is all that I had to offer for you today. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? I'm going to stop the recording as well as stop sharing my screen. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to put my email address in the chat, as I mentioned before. So if you want that specific resource, or if you would like to learn more about that Business Accelerator program, please just let me know. My LinkedIn, I highly encourage anyone who attended today to network with the people who attended our session today, because these people are also interested in improving their business English communication. And then the last link I'm going to send you is my direct scheduling link. So if you would like to talk one-on-one about how you can improve a specific aspect of your business English communication further, or if you would like to directly talk with me about the program, the Business English Communication Program, please just go ahead and schedule an appointment. And I would love to talk with you one-on-one over a video call. But are there any questions? It doesn't look like it so far. Are there any questions? Tobias says, what is the cost of the course? That's a great question. So each program is individualized. So that is something that we would have to talk about one-on-one together. So I definitely recommend scheduling an appointment with that last link there, Tobias. Great question. Any other questions? While you're typing, I do want to say one last thing. If you would like the recording of this video, please just let me know after the class as well, because I can send that to you too. But if there are no questions for today, we're going to end a little bit early, but I wanted to say thank you all for taking time out of your day to be here. I know for many of you it's early in the morning, so I very much appreciate it. I'm always here if you have any questions about not only business English communication, but also cross-cultural communication, as well as transitioning jobs. So please let me know. Thank you all again for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. I'm so glad you found it to be informational, Minji. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful that you all came today, because I wouldn't have this if it wasn't for you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Akiko. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Thank you, Yuta. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ken. You have a great day as well. Enjoy. Have a beautiful day, everyone. All right. Bye. Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you. You all are so great. Thank you so much. Bye.